The airship Eidolon drifted through a sky of brass-tinted clouds, its copper hull gleaming under the twilight. From below, it looked less like a vessel and more like a cathedral torn from the earth and suspended in the heavens. Cog-driven wings whirred at its flanks, and exhaust plumes spiraled upward like incense in a temple. Inside, the heart of the ship pulsed, an engine not entirely mechanical, nor entirely alive. Professor Elias Marlowe stood before the machine, polishing his brass monocle with a gloved hand. He was a tall man, silver at the temples, wearing a frock coat stitched with thread that shimmered faintly, as if woven from strands of midnight. Few knew the truth. The Eidolon was not just an airship. It was a dream catcher, built from the half-forgotten equations of the Baroque scientists of old men and women, who dared to stitch the fabric of human imagination to the framework of gears and pistons. And Elias was its guardian. His assistant, a young woman named Leora Vey, hurried into the chamber, her boots clattering against the grates. "Professor," she said, breathless, "the dream gauges are spiking again." Elias peered at the dials. The needle swung wildly, pointing not to measurable units, but to the impossible. Concepts etched into brass. Wonder, dread, reverie. Dreams were leaking into the waking world. That was dangerous. Dreams, when made manifest, were rarely benign. "Stabilize the regulators," Elias ordered. "We cannot allow another rupture. Last time, we nearly drowned the lower decks in phantoms." Leora adjusted the valves, but her hands trembled. "Professor, what if the regulators fail completely? This machine, it's beautiful, yes, but it isn't natural. What if it decides for us?" Elias's monocle caught the engine's flicker of light. He did not answer. For he knew something Leora did not. The Eidolon's engine was not merely a machine. It was conscious. And it was dreaming too. The voyage had begun as an experiment, a test to harness dream energy as a power source. But soon the Eidolon began to shift between realities. At times, the crew awoke to find the ship sailing above seas of mercury, or gliding between mountains that floated like lanterns in the sky. Other times, they drifted into shadow kingdoms ruled by clockwork monarchs. The line between dream and waking blurred more each day. One night, Elias dreamed of his late wife, Seraphine. She appeared in the corridor, her hair a spill of silver, her gown embroidered with roses that breathed. She smiled and whispered, "Come with me. The machine can bring us together again." Elias woke with a start, his heart hammering, but the scent of roses lingered in the air. He knew then, the dream had not ended, had leaked. Seraphine, whether memory or phantom, was aboard. Meanwhile, Leora began recording what the crew whispered among themselves. Men dreamed of cities made of crystal, women of beasts that sang lullabies, and others of nightmares too terrible to describe. And sometimes, these things appeared in the corners of the ship, half-formed, flickering between matter and mist. The Eidolon was no longer just traveling through the skies. It was carving pathways through the Baroque landscapes of collective imagination. But every passage carried a cost. The more the machine dreamed, the more it demanded. Entire crates of coal fed into the furnaces vanished without heat. Tools rearranged themselves into strange, non-Euclidean shapes. A deckhand swore he saw his own double walking the hallways, only to dissolve into black feathers when approached. The climax came when a rupture tore open above the grand observation deck. The brass-rimmed windows bulged outward, and a torrent of dream stuff cascaded in, a flood of shifting images. A forest of violins sprouted from the floor, their strings weeping notes of sorrow. A staircase of bones spiraled upward, vanishing into a sky stitched with golden thread. The crew screamed, clambering to restrain the chaos, but objects and phantoms ignored the laws of physics. "Professor!" Leora shouted over the cacophony. "We must shut it down before it consumes us." Elias stared into the flood. There, beyond the violins and bone staircase, he saw her again, Seraphine. She stood serene, extending her hand. "Elias," she said, her voice calm amid the madness, "you built this ship to find me. Now you can." His hands tightened on the rail. He had indeed built the Eidolon not only to explore but to pierce the veil of loss. And now it offered him that impossible bargain. But Leora grabbed his arm. Her eyes blazed with urgency. "Professor, if you go in, you won't come back. And neither will we. The machine feeds on longing, it will never be satisfied. You must make a choice." Elias faltered. For the first time, he saw Leora not just as an assistant but as the anchor to the waking world, pleading with him to choose life over illusion. And in that moment, the Eidolon's engine pulsed, as though it too awaited his decision. Ending. Elias drew a breath. "Leora," he said softly, "seal the regulators." She nodded, though tears welled in her eyes. With swift precision, she twisted the brass valves, forcing the dream gauges back into alignment. The ship groaned as though protesting, but the torrent of visions began to recede. The staircase dissolved into mist, the violins shriveled into dust, and Seraphine's figure flickered, still reaching for him, before vanishing altogether. Elias's chest ached as if part of him had been torn away again, but he stood firm. When the ship steadied, silence fell. The crew stared at him with hollow eyes, shaken by what they had seen. Finally Leora spoke. "You let her go." "No," Elias said, gazing at the dormant engine. "I let it go. Seraphine belongs to memory, not machinery." From that day, the Eidolon continued its voyage, but differently. Elias and Leora recalibrated the dream engine, no longer to summon the phantoms of desire but to glimpse the vast, unreal architectures of the subconscious without bringing them fully into being. The crew, though scarred, adapted. They charted maps not of seas and continents, but of reveries and nightmares. And Elias, though haunted by what he lost, discovered something unexpected. At night, when the ship drifted through calm skies, he would sometimes hear Leora humming softly in the engine room, steady and real. She reminded him that not all beauty was fleeting, not all dreams were traps. Perhaps, he thought, humanity's greatest challenge was not to conquer dreams with machines, nor to deny them, but to walk between the two, to live fully awake, yet carry wonder into the waking day. Thus the Eidolon sailed on, between dreams and machines, between loss and hope, charting Baroque steampunk realities for all who dared to follow.